is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by the WBC President Mauricio Sulaiman here at the wonderful Elondi restaurant in East London. How are you?
I'm very well, very happy. What a sensational weekend. I'm going home with a warm heart and great feelings from what I have lived and experienced this weekend.
Let's talk about that. The big fight, the big show at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Dereck Chisora fought very valiantly, but ultimately a one-sided fight, I think it has to be said, against the champion Tyson Fury. What were your reflections immediately after the end of the fight?
Well, have to understand the greatness of Fury. He's a tremendous fighter. He has all the attributes of a pound-for-pound great, and Chisora was very brave. I was expecting the corner to stop the fight a couple rounds before, and when a father is in the corner of a fighter, it tends to prolong. Referee did a good job stopping it, but the corner should have stopped it before. But have to recognize Chisora's willingness and heart to continue, and of course Fury and the fans. The British fans are the best in the world. Every time I have been here, I go home with memories, and this was no exception. It was a tremendous outing.
Now, there have been a lot of calls in the immediate aftermath of the fight for Dereck Chisora to now retire. There were similar calls before his victory last time against Kubrat Pulev, but this time it just seems like he's taken, once again, a lot of damage. And people are worried about the future health implications. What's your view on this?
I think Chisora has had a great career, and this was the last opportunity. He tried his best, and I think it would be time for him to evaluate retirement. He has a good life in front of him, and but you can never tell a fighter to quit, to stop. I hope he does, but I respect him, and whatever he decides, hopefully he will take a different path, and he can do great things in boxing from outside the ring.
Now, thoughts immediately turn to the future for Tyson Fury and indeed the WBC Championship. The hope is that we see an undisputed title fight with Oleksandr Usyk, who's got the other major belts. They had a face-to-face confrontation, I'm sure you saw, at the stadium after the fight. How, from your understanding, speaking to the promoters and the fighters, how close are we to that fight being made, do you think?
Well, I think it's very close. This is the time to do it. This is the time, the time has aligned itself. The WBC will certainly approve it and maximize the flexibility to make it happen. We have ordered a final elimination, has not taken place, so it's good timing to do the unified championship. Hopefully will take place.
Is there anything the WBC can do in terms of discussions or speaking to the other major sanctioning bodies to make sure this fight happens? Because I know the IBF have called a mandatory, of course, with Filip Hrgovic. There's some debate about who's next in the rotation of the mandatory for Usyk's belts as well. Is there anything the WBC can do to make this, more calm and an easier way to undisputed?
Well, unfortunately, each organization has their own rules, their own agendas, so we can only do what the WBC is in hands to do. We all have discussed the importance to keep unified champions, especially undisputed champions, and hopefully this will be the case, that we all cooperate so the fight takes place and that the winner can continue as undisputed down the road.
Is that something you'd be willing to do, to enter into, I know you speak to them fairly regularly anyway, but to enter into negotiations with your counterparts at the other organisations, Paco and Gilberto and so on, and see if you can work out a kind of agreement on this before the fight takes place?
Yes, that would be ideal. Naturally, if Fury wins, it is natural that the WBC mandatory would take precedent. If Usyk wins, then it's the other side. So it is a matter, having 4 mandatories as an undisputed champion is complicated. We usually have a rotating system, but it is just a matter of communications and good faith and flexibility to make the best for the sport.
Now, if Fury does come out on top, if that fight takes place, how long would he have after that before he'd have to accommodate the new WBC mandatory challenger, whether that is Deontay Wilder or Andy Ruiz Jr.?
Well, we have to see. We have to see when that fight takes place. Then, at that time, is where the time frame can be addressed. At this moment, it's impossible because it's not signed, it's not settled. We don't know when that fight is going to take place, either one. So, the position of the WBC is we allow the unification and then the winner to fight the WBC mandatory if we have one.
Now, if Fury Usyk does take place for all four belts, and if it's not a draw, we'll see the first undisputed heavyweight champion in the four-belt era. How much would it mean to you to be part of that moment in history?
Every fight is important. We have had great champions that have not been unified. We have had great fights that have not been for the unified. The unified is a glory moment, but not necessarily represents the epitome of an era. I know the fans really like unified champions. It is clear and simple that there's one champion, but then it gets very complicated with the mandatories and the challengers and the different positions of promoters and networks. But I am very happy. We're seeing a good era with several unified champions. Canelo, Inoue is fighting for the fourth belt in December next week. So it's a great time for the sport.
Does it mean something to you in terms of rivalry, if you like, with the other bodies, if your champion is the one who comes out on top? So, for example, Fury's the WBC champion. If he proves he's the best heavyweight by beating Usyk, would that mean something to you?
With all due respect, I am with my champion. Yeah. Fury is the best heavyweight. There's no doubt about it. And I'm very proud of him, and he's very proud of the WBC. He shows it every time he speaks and he's in public. He shows his pride for the green and gold. And that is the great representation that we have. So whoever is the champion is the champion. So I always have to be with the WBC champion. And I will be with him at all times.
Now, talking of undisputed title holders, we've got Canelo, of course, still holds that mantle at 168 pounds, despite defeat at 175 to Bivol 2 fights ago. What's the situation with Canelo and defending the WBC belt? Is he under any pressure? Is there a mandatory on the horizon for him?
We ordered at the convention a fight between the interim champion, Benavides, and Caleb Plant. So the winner of that fight is going to be the mandatory of the division.
And where will that work in terms of the rotation that we discussed earlier with Fury? Because Canelo, as we say, has all four major titles.
At this moment, I don't know. He is out he had a surgery, he's doing rehab, and we don't know the time frame for him to return to the ring. We expect to talk to him by the end of this year, beginning of the next year, to understand his plans, and then we can, once we have a date for Benavides Plant and we have a result, then it all comes into shape.
Would you like to see him return again at 168 for his next fight, or would you like to see him go back up to 175 and rematch Dimitri Bivol, something he's discussed?
I think the best for him would be to stay in 168. He has been super welter, middle, super middle, light heavyweight champion, but without a doubt, I say super middle is his limit because he's a small fighter. He's short. He's not the physical advantage that he gives in other divisions is tremendous.
Now, an undisputed fight we could see take place, and I'm sure a lot of fans, hardcore fans, certainly would like to see, is Dimitri Bivol, who we just talked about, and Artur Beterbiev, who holds 3 of the major belts at 175, including the WBC title. He goes in Vanity Yard, of course, in the UK in January. How close do you think we might be, assuming he defeats Yard, to seeing him against Bivol for all the belts?
I don't know. This is a matter of the promoters. We have Bivol, and we have Beterbiev. And of course, we have a mandatory for the winner of Better Yard, who is Callum Smith. So that is something that we cannot put aside. It was clear we allowed the WBO mandatory to go first. That was an agreement we did, and now it's the WBC's turn. So hopefully it will go that way. If not, we'll have to see then.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about Conor Benn. Last time we spoke on a Zoom call, you said that the WBC had launched its own investigation into the drug testing results that was separate from that of UCAD and the Boxing Board of Control. What kind of stage are we at with the WBC's investigation currently?
We have had very good collaboration from Conor Benn and his team. We are gathering information. They have provided documents. We expect to have a hearing, most likely by Zoom, during December, and hopefully we'll have a ruling by the end of this month.
It's been well publicised that there were 2 positive or adverse finding drug tests that took place. Only the first one is via the WBC's clean boxing program. So would I be right in thinking there's no need to prove any innocence regarding the second test for your investigation?
I'm not certain. This is out of my hands. There's a committee that takes into consideration all the facts, all the information regarding the case. So I cannot get into specifics because I am not the one that has that information or that role. But we hopefully will have certainty by the end of this month.
Without going into specific details about other cases, when you have dealt with things like this in the past, you just talked about how forthcoming Conor Benn's team have been in terms of providing information, cooperating. Is that usually the case when you do these investigations, or do you sometimes meet some resistance?
No, we have had resistance. We have had a different approach. You know, every single case is different. Because the fighter is different, the substance is different, the circumstances are different. But at this time, we are hopeful that everything will turn into a ruling as soon as possible.
And can we ask, who's representing Conor Benn in this investigation? Is it the promoter, the manager? Who's kind of looking out for him?
He has an attorney that is in contact with us.
It must be very difficult getting into these things because while you look at the specific case, as you say, there's also the wider impact on the sport. How mindful do you need to be about the PR aspect, if you like, the optics?
Well, boxing is not a game. Here, if you have a doping incident, you're not scoring goals or breaking a record of speed, you are punching somebody else. So this is the importance of the clean boxing program, the effects that it can have into a human being. And this is very complicated, but it's a must. I feel very proud of the WBC stance for clean boxing. We have spent a fortune. We have spent lots of time and many headaches due to this, but we must be the leaders in making sure our fighters are clean and safe.
Now, before we move on from this subject, can you just give us a brief history of Conor Benn's time in the clean boxing program? Because I believe he was in the rankings, didn't enroll, and then enrolled later on. So just tell us exactly what happened there.
Yes, when you enter the top 15 of the WBC, you are required to enroll in the clean boxing program, mandatorily. When Conor Benn entered the top 15, he was sent the documentation and he didn't enroll and was put out of the rankings due to that fact. Immediately he enrolled and he was back in the rankings. So it is a matter of communications, or I'm not sure what happened then, but that's the way it happened, and he enrolled once he was out.
Now, as sad as this is to say, this will probably be the last time we speak in 2022. So if you don't mind, give us some of your major boxing highlights of this year.
Tyson Fury selling 160,000 tickets in a year. Women selling out Madison Square Garden and the O2 Arena. The massive class we had in Mexico City, breaking the Guinness record of boxing class. It was a beautiful time. The great fights in Japan, Inoue and Murata with Triple G. Canelo, Triple G was a great event. I would say so many other good fights that we have seen. Errol Spence with Ugas, Chocolatito against Estrada. I'm sorry I'm missing a few, but it has been a tremendous year for the sport. And our convention. Our convention was a statement of unity, of representation, a great WBC family, over 1,700 delegates met in Acapulco to make boxing better and safer. I'm very, very proud, and I'm very excited for next year.
And talking of next year, just to round off, what are your kind of biggest wishes or ambitions for boxing in 2023?
Fury, Usyk, Spence, Crawford, Canelo, Benavides, Taylor, Serrano, too. What else? Clarissa Shields against, I don't remember. But there's so many great things happening. Of course, Lomachenko-Haney is going to be tremendous. So many good fights in the horizon.
And perhaps, I know we talked about this off record, but boxing's future in the Olympics, perhaps to be rubber stamped.
That's one of the top priorities. Amateur boxing, the Olympics. We are in great concern because as of today, 2028 has no boxing, but we'll work diligently to make it happen.
Excellent. Mauricio, really appreciate your time and the lunch that we've just all enjoyed as well. Thank you very much. Yes, that was really good.